The bad thing about the 90s was that sitcoms became pretty popular stuff. So you had Seinfeld, and Seinfeld would actually contact writers that he knew, like Joey Gutierrez was a stand-up comic, a headline stand-up comic, but he would write a lot of Seinfeld's cutaway stand-up bits that he did on that show. So you remember how the show was all about their friends, but then at every commercial break, it would be a cutaway to him on stage telling a stand-up joke. And a lot of that shit was written by other guys. And Joey Gutierrez was one of the guys that wrote his stuff. And stuff like shows like Married with Children. I don't know if anybody remembers that show back from the 90s. Very popular sitcom on Fox. And those shows were written in two ways. They either had a staff of comics locked in a room, right, banging out a script for a show. Simpsons and that sort of thing, work like that. Which is where Conan came from. He was a writer for Simpsons. And the other way, comedies like sitcoms like Mad About You and the stuff like Everybody Loves Raymond would be sort of a more modern example. They were written by people who are one or two writers. They're at home. They bang out an entire script for the show, and then they just solicit the script. So a lot of shows did not have staff writers. They would just solicit scripts from people. And the staff writer shows, more often than not, those guys, even though there'd be several people in the shows, they were starving for fucking bits. They were starving for shit to put in there. And when they ran dry, these guys would go to comedy clubs on open mic nights and on showcase nights, and they'd sit in the back of the room and they'd write down the fucking jokes that they liked, and then they would put it into a script for a sitcom. And then these stand-up guys start seeing their fucking jokes being told in sitcom stories and thinking it's just some marvelous fucking coincidence. And then come to realize that these guys are in the clubs fucking lifting jokes. So they eventually had to bar certain guys and gals from coming in clubs. And so they got so desperate then that they hired college students to go in with tape recorders and tape sets.
What?
Yeah. And so,
Fuck.
yes. So a lot of times, like when I tell comics about like getting taped or whatever, doing your stuff on tape, a lot of comics are like, oh, I don't want my tape out there. I don't want my tape out there. If you have a manager or something like that that tells you not to let your shit be out there, then don't do it. But otherwise, I don't think people should hesitate to tape their stuff, because that's the evidence of your work, that you were the first guy to tell that fucking joke. Because that tape comes in, it's got a time date and a stamp date on it and that sort of thing. Upload the stuff on YouTube, make it unlisted so nobody can see it if you want. But that's your record of your shit that you do, So if my friend had called me on that night on that joke, I would have showed, I could have showed her a tape from me like 30 years ago doing the joke, because we taped everything back then. Now I will tell you that your most brilliant stuff, you might want to keep unlisted. Because I have heard that when you do TV, they don't want all your best stuff to be already out there in the ether. They want to be the ones who do your stuff. So like if you had, for example, if you had a 5-minute bit, that went viral, TV doesn't want you for that bit because it's already out there. So some of your best stuff that you use even for submissions and that sort of thing, I keep some of those tapes unlisted. There's actually 2 reasons why I keep them unlisted, and this is not advice, this is just what I do. I keep things that I submit to comedy festivals and TV and ages stuff, I keep it unlisted so it's not out there for everybody to see, but also because it has far fewer views And if I submit something to somebody, I can tell if they looked at it. Because I know that if I go into YouTube, it'll tell me this now has 48 views. It had 47 views before I sent that to them. You see what I'm saying? So I know that the guy I just submitted to looked at my tape. That's meaningful to me. Because then I know they've seen my work. So if they don't respond to me and they haven't seen my work, I go, I don't know what. But if they have seen my work and they don't respond to me, I know it's just not a good fit for them. They're just not interested, you know. But it's just like a good personal sort of, it feels good inside to see that somebody looked at your submission shit, you know, be able to take that up.
That they noticed you. You're not like a fly in the sand or something.
Yeah. So I as far as comedy goes today, was the question about like how the booking and stuff goes now?
No, the question was, how did comics back then have to go and progress and build a
Oh,
career and
progress, yeah.
become professionals? And now, what do people need to do to become professional comedians in Boston?
Okay. I'm going to say this right up front. I would say that based on my experience, and what I'm talking about here is experience. I don't want you guys to equate experience with fame, okay? Because I've got a lot of experience. It doesn't mean, but I've almost did it for 30 years. I never got that break yet. I never created that break for myself yet. But I've seen everything under the sun over the years, and I've seen things that work for people, and you know, and I've seen a lot of comics. And I say one of the things that you got to decide up front is what you want to do. If you want to do this as a profession, full time, and make money at it all the time, all the time with nothing else, um, because a lot of your work is not going to be on stage. Most of your work is not going to be on stage at all. You're going to spend your time promoting. You're going to spend your time submitting to people. You're going to spend your time researching venues you can go to. You're going to spend your time trying to find agents. You're going to spend your time on social media generating content. You got to spend your time all the time just doing stuff, banging shit out there all the time. Writing every day. And when you write, I recommend people look up Gary Goldman, Gulman. Look up his bit on first look up his bit on TV doing how they decided the alphabet for American states. Because the states are called Alabama, but you just say AL. Like you don't so how they determine these abbreviations. He has a 5-minute bit, this most hysterical fucking thing you have ever seen. And it's brilliant writing. And he gives a lot of tips on writing to comics in his blogs and stuff. And one of the things that Gary Goldman says is you got to go through you got to have your stuff taped, and then you got to translate that stuff like dictation, and you got to translate it and write it all down word for word. And then you break that stuff down word for word, and you choose the words and the phrasing and all that stuff that you want. You don't just go up on stage each week and say, well, I'm going to try it like this a little bit more. This prepare, write, work that bit out, write it down word by word, knock that stuff out, figure it out. Writing tip along the side. I have stuff written out completely. A lot of my tight 10, for example, I've got every word in it. And it has an illusion of spontaneity when I'm doing it, but it's still a written script on a lot of levels. Because when you do like TV, if you want to make it and you do like America's Got Talent, you want to know what they told me to submit to them? You have any guesses what they wanted me to submit to them?
Money? I don't know.
They want to see my comedy. You know how much they want to see? 90 seconds.
Oh. 90 seconds.
90 seconds is how much time you've got to make them laugh. And if you do the show, you're only going to get 2 minutes at the most. That shit has got to be tight. I mean, tighter than Toby's drum, man. You got to nail that stuff down to the gnat's ass. That's why I say you go through your stuff. Strive. One of the things I've seen the comics do badly or whatever, strive your setups. You should. There's a science actually to the comedy, at least in comedy that I have done in the U.S. and comedy and comedians that I've worked with. And the science of the mathematics is to count up how many laughs you actually get. People go, how can you quantify it, like laughs or whatever? Well, you can. And a lot of agents and managers will look at you, and when they see your work, they're going to ask themselves, does he have 5 laughs a minute? 5 to 7 laughs a minute is what they want. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to wait for a laugh on the punchline. You might get a laugh along the way in your setup, which is very good. But some of the sort of tightness on rules is like, you got to get a laugh in the first 30 seconds. Don't take longer than 30 seconds or you're done. Say something charming in the first 10 seconds, you're way better off. Okay. Like, if you play off the last comics thing, or, they introduce you and you go, wow, that was a great introduction. I'm excited to hear what I'll say. Like whatever can get, a little chuckle in the first 7 to 10 seconds, whatever is good. Make a joke in the first 30 seconds. And if you're striving to say, okay, I'm not trying to quantify my laughs, Casey, so but if you really look at like that standard of 5 laughs a minute and say, how many are you getting? What you'll probably find, like me, it's one of my bits to say, if you're like me, and I know I am, you will find that you need to make your setups half as long and twice as interesting. I've seen a lot of guys, they do setups and the setups are way too long. You don't need to set up a joke for 2 fucking minutes. Get to it, man. Get to the punchline where you can. So when you write stuff down, it's easier to look at words and chop them out and cut things down and do it, right. So writing well is one thing I would tell you to do. In Boston, in order to get on a show, even a medium-sized show, like I'm going to do comedy night at the brewery, that kind of a show. You got to go out and try to get guest sets and shows. Go out and appear on shows. Sit in the audience. Be there. Be present. Be seen. Be a supporter. Celebrate what's going on. If you're not playing something, publish somebody else's act on your site and go, hey, check these guys out down at so-and-so street. I'm going to go there tonight, and tag them in your posts. Promote, celebrate, go in there. They go, first time maybe you go in, they go, hey, you want a set? Say, I'm just here to support, have a meal, support the club, support the show. Bookers respect that shit a lot. Comics, especially the book shows, because when a comic goes to a venue, it can't be much different in England. When a comic goes to a venue, you're like, I want to do comedy in here, and here's why you should have us. And the only end sign of here's why you should have us that matters to a pub owner is the dollar signs. So it's like, people are going to eat meals, they're going to drink. I'm going to have an open mic night. It's like karaoke. 25 comics will come in here and have a beer. And so when you show you're one of those guys coming in to have that beer, laugh at the jokes of the comics that are on stage, not be there like, that's not funny. I could have done that. Like, screw yourself. Get out. Get fucking over yourself. Celebrate success. Celebrate comedy. I think it's a very important thing that I say frequently when I speak to my colleagues. I am because we are.
Okay.
I am because we are. My comedy means nothing without this entire community of comedians, these venues for me to perform it, these other comedians to support me when I'm down, bookers to book me, places to go. I exist because we exist. I have this profession because we all participate in it. So I go out and I participate, even if I'm not on the show. I support the comedy. I celebrate the acts. I tell people how much I enjoyed their sets by email afterward, or by text messages and stuff. messenger stuff. Go out and support shows, be on other people's shows, be seen, be present, be around. And that is that's a piece of advice I actually got from a really great comic, local comic here named Zenobia Del Mar, who's a really, really good, funny comic. Very conversational to watch. You would like it. Um, Sorry, my phone seems to be talking to me now. Quiet, Siri. You don't listen to my conversations, Jeff Bezos. So